My wife, the CFO, told me she was going on a business trip for a week. 2 days later, I found out she had been meeting with a secret investor. That night she said, "We're done." I smiled and said, "You'll be back to me soon." By morning, the entire stock market collapsed and she called me in panic. When Sarah first told me she was going on a business trip for a week, it seemed perfectly ordinary. She had just taken over as CFO at a prestigious company, and these kinds of trips were part of her new role. We talked about it in passing and I supported her as I always did. Our marriage had always been strong, at least I thought it had been. She was ambitious, driven, and we both knew her career would demand sacrifices. I was proud of her. She worked hard for everything she had, and I had always been her #1 cheerleader. The night before she left, she seemed distracted. Her phone kept buzzing with messages and she would glance at it, then quickly turn her attention back to packing. It wasn't unusual for Sarah to be glued to her phone, but there was something different about this night. I couldn't put my finger on it. Was it the way she checked her phone repeatedly, or the way her eyes darted to the clock every few minutes? Something felt off. "Are you excited for the trip?" I asked, sitting at the kitchen table while she stuffed the last of her clothes into her suitcase. "Yeah, it's going to be a busy week," she replied, not looking up. "I have a lot of meetings lined up, a lot of things to handle with the board members." She never sounded this detached before. Usually, she'd tell me about her meetings in great detail, always excited to share her success and the company's latest developments. But tonight, she was distant. I shrugged it off, telling myself it was just nerves before the big trip. After all, she had been working tirelessly for months, and this was her chance to prove herself to the higher-ups at the firm. Maybe the pressure was getting to her. We said our goodbyes the next morning with the usual kiss and a promise to talk soon. "I'll miss you," I said, and she smiled, albeit briefly, before heading out the door. I watched her drive off, my thoughts swirling. It was a Friday, and I had the weekend to myself. As much as I loved spending time with Sarah, I had to admit, I was looking forward to a quiet weekend of relaxation. The first couple of days went by without incident. I kept myself busy with work and errands. I talked to Sarah a few times a day. She'd tell me about her meetings, about her discussions with the investors, and about how everything seemed to be going smoothly. I noticed she seemed more reserved than usual, but I thought nothing of it. Maybe it was just the pressure of her new position weighing on her. Then 2 days into her trip, something happened that I couldn't ignore. It started with a message from Sarah. She texted me around lunchtime on the 3rd day of her trip, asking if I had received the documents she had emailed earlier that morning. I hadn't, but I went through my inbox searching for them. Nothing. So I responded, letting her know I hadn't gotten them yet. "Check your spam folder," she texted back quickly. "Okay, I will." It was an odd reply, a little abrupt. She was usually much more patient with me, especially when it came to things like this. But I didn't think too much about it. I opened my spam folder, but nothing from her showed up there either. I sent another message asking if she had tried sending the documents again. I didn't want to bother her too much with work stuff, but we were running out of time. I needed to know if there was something I was missing. No response. Hours passed and I still hadn't heard from her. It wasn't like Sarah to leave things hanging, so I decided to give her a call. When the phone rang and went straight to voicemail, my unease grew. Something wasn't right. I checked the time. It was 9:00 p.m. there, which meant it was getting late. I rationalized it again. Maybe she was busy with meetings, maybe she was at dinner. But why wouldn't she respond? Why was she being so evasive? It wasn't until the next morning that I received another text from Sarah. It was brief and to the point. "Meeting went long. I'll be back at the hotel soon. Sorry I missed your call." There was nothing unusual about it, but something about the timing felt off. She had never taken this long to respond before, especially when it came to work-related things. I tried calling her again, no answer. That's when my mind started to wander. I knew I was starting to feel paranoid, but the more I thought about it, the more something didn't sit right. I had spent enough years married to Sarah to recognize when something was wrong. And now, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being left in the dark. I tried texting her once more. "Hey, is everything okay? I just want to make sure you're doing all right." A few minutes later, I received a response, but it wasn't what I expected. "I'm fine, just getting things sorted here. I'll call you later." That was it. No explanation. No check-in. I stared at the message, feeling a pit form in my stomach. It wasn't like her to be this distant. Something was off, and I could feel it in the core of my being. I told myself I was overreacting, that she was just busy with work. After all, this was a big opportunity for her, and I had been proud of how hard she was working to prove herself. But deep down, I couldn't ignore the nagging suspicion that was growing stronger by the minute. As the hours went by, I started to do something I never thought I would. I started checking her social media. It felt invasive, but I needed to know what was going on. I went through her Facebook, her LinkedIn, her Instagram. Everything appeared normal, too normal, but it was the posts that caught my attention. Sarah had always been the type to post about her trips, sharing photos and experiences with her followers, but there was nothing. No pictures, no status updates. There was only silence. Then I decided to go a step further. I checked the company's website and the business page for her employer. That's when I saw it. There was a new investor meeting scheduled, an emergency investor roundtable. The meeting was scheduled for the same day she had supposedly been working in her hotel. I couldn't ignore it anymore. The timing, the secrecy, everything was starting to point to something I wasn't prepared to face. I didn't know what to do, but I knew one thing for sure. I had to find out the truth. I couldn't keep living in the dark, pretending that everything was fine when something clearly was. That night, I decided to confront Sarah. I didn't care if it meant interrupting her work or making her uncomfortable. I needed answers, and I wasn't going to wait any longer. I dialed her number one more time. It rang twice before she picked up. "Hey," she said, her voice sounding oddly flat. "Sorry I didn't get back to you earlier." "Sarah," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "where are you right now?" There was a pause on the other end of the line, a long one that made my heart race. "What do you mean?" she asked, her tone a little too defensive. "I'm at the hotel, obviously." "I know you're at the hotel," I said, my voice growing more urgent. "But I just checked the company's site. There's an emergency meeting, an investor meeting, and you didn't mention it to me. Why didn't you tell me about it?" She hesitated, her silence deafening. I didn't think it was necessary," she finally said, her voice strained. "I didn't want to worry you, it's just business." "It's not just business, Sarah. You've been hiding something from me. You're not just at the hotel working, are you?" I asked, the words coming out before I could stop them. There was a long, uncomfortable silence on the other end of the line. "Sarah," I pressed. "Look," she said, finally breaking the silence, "I don't have time for this right now. I'll explain everything when I get back." "No, Sarah, I need to know right now. Why are you lying to me? What's going on?" "I'm doing what I have to do," she said, her voice cold. "And I don't owe you any explanations." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I was stunned into silence. This wasn't just a misunderstanding or a simple mistake. Sarah was hiding something, and she didn't care enough to be honest with me anymore. The woman I had trusted, the woman I had built a life with, was slipping away from me in real time. "That's it then?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "You're done?" "I'm done," she said, and just like that she hung up. I sat there stunned, unable to breathe. My heart felt like it had stopped beating. The words echoed in my mind, "I'm done." I wasn't sure what to do next. My world had just crumbled, and all I could do was sit there, wondering where everything had gone wrong. How had it come to this? I sat in silence for what felt like hours after Sarah hung up on me. My phone buzzed a few times with texts from her, but I didn't even have the strength to look at them. The words she had said, "I'm done," kept echoing in my head over and over. Every part of me screamed in disbelief, but beneath that disbelief, there was something else. Something that felt familiar. It was the same feeling I had when she first betrayed me, when everything I thought I knew about her and our marriage was ripped apart. I couldn't shake the feeling that this time it was different. She wasn't just hiding the truth. She was actively lying to me, and I didn't know why. The woman I loved was slipping through my fingers, and I didn't know how to hold on to her anymore. I needed answers. I tried to distract myself. I picked up my phone, opened her texts, and saw a few messages, all of which were vague, disjointed, or just unhelpful. "I'm really busy, I'll explain everything when I get back. You don't need to worry, everything's fine." They were the same kinds of excuses I'd heard before, the ones that made me question her sincerity. And now, I was starting to feel like an idiot for ever believing her. The next morning, I woke up to an empty bed. Sarah had already left for whatever it was she was doing. I didn't even know where she was anymore. I couldn't even bring myself to check her calendar. Something told me I didn't want to know where she was or what she was doing. But the silence in the house was unbearable. The weight of the uncertainty was like a lead weight on my chest. My mind was spinning, and no matter how much I tried to calm myself, I couldn't shake the feeling that something much darker was unfolding. I knew I had to do something. I grabbed my jacket, threw my phone in my pocket, and left the house. I needed to clear my head. I needed to figure out what had been happening with Sarah, and most importantly, why. Why had she pushed me away? Why had she lied to me again, even after everything we had gone through? I couldn't ignore it any longer. I knew something had to be wrong. I just didn't know what. I drove through the city aimlessly at first, just trying to gather my thoughts. The streets were quiet, almost too quiet. It felt like the world had stopped spinning around me, leaving me alone in this chaotic storm of confusion and heartbreak. I didn't know how I was supposed to feel. A part of me still wanted to believe Sarah was telling the truth, that I was overreacting, that everything would be okay. But the larger part of me, this growing feeling of unease, knew that something was very wrong. And then it hit me. I had to check the company's records. I had never been the type to snoop through Sarah's things, to invade her privacy like this, but after the way she'd been acting, I couldn't just sit back and wait for her to explain herself. I needed to know what was really going on, and the only way I could do that was to see the evidence for myself. I parked near her office building, waiting for the right moment. My heart was beating faster now, a sense of urgency pushing me forward. I wasn't proud of what I was doing, but I was past the point of trying to convince myself that everything was fine. I had to know the truth, no matter what it took. After a few minutes, I made my move. I had access to her work account. She had shared it with me before, trusting me with everything in her professional life. At least I thought she did. I pulled out my phone and logged into her email account. My hands were shaking as I typed in the password. The seconds felt like hours, and with each click, I felt like I was diving deeper into something I wasn't prepared for. When I finally got in, I started going through her recent emails. It didn't take long for me to find the threads I was looking for. There were emails with a mysterious investor she'd been meeting with, emails discussing business strategies, investments, and meetings that I hadn't been told about. My stomach churned as I scrolled through them. The tone of the emails was informal, almost intimate, and it made my skin crawl. The more I read, the more I realized how much she had been hiding from me. There were talks about deals, investment portfolios, and financial strategies. There were even mentions of a private dinner meeting, where Sarah had discussed potential future investments. There was no mention of me, no mention of our marriage. It was as if I didn't even exist in her world anymore. But the most unsettling part came when I found the email thread that was the most recent. It was from the same investor, and it was clear they were planning something bigger. The email outlined a proposal for Sarah to manage a new project, one that involved significantly more risk than any previous deals. It also discussed a bonus structure that was tied to the success of the project. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. This wasn't just business. There was something personal going on here, something more than just work. It was clear that Sarah had been keeping this from me, and it hurt more than I could say. I was still reeling from the shock of it all when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I glanced down at it, half expecting it to be another message from Sarah trying to explain herself. But instead, it was a news notification. My heart stopped when I saw the headline. Company stock price plummets 30% amidst secret investor deal. I clicked the link in a daze, and as I read through the article, everything started to make sense. The investor Sarah had been meeting with was a key player in the deal, and the meeting had been kept under wraps. The company's stock price had begun to drop steadily in the days leading up to it, and now, with the news of a secret deal being leaked, the market was in turmoil. And then it hit me. This was the reason she had been so distant. This was the reason she had been so secretive. Sarah had been involved in a risky deal, one that was now causing the company's value to drop rapidly. But what was even more troubling was the timing. The deal had been going on for weeks, right under my nose, and she hadn't told me a thing. I sat there for a long time, unable to process what I had just discovered. Sarah had been lying to me, not just about the affair, but about her entire life. She had been keeping secrets, making deals, and now the consequences were beginning to unravel before my eyes. I didn't know what to do next. I had 1,000 questions running through my mind. What was she really up to? What did she think she was doing? Was she still with the investor? Had she been using him to get ahead in her career? I couldn't make sense of it all. My mind was a whirlwind, trying to connect the dots between Sarah's behavior, the secret meetings, the stock market crash, and the lies that had been piling up around me. I needed to confront her. I needed to know what was going on, but at the same time, I feared what I might find. The phone buzzed again, but this time, it was a call from Sarah. I stared at the screen for a moment, my breath caught in my throat. Should I answer? Or should I let it ring, knowing that everything I had just discovered might be the beginning of the end? I hesitated, then pressed answer. "Hello," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, even though my heart was racing. "Hey, it's me," Sarah's voice came through, but there was something cold in her tone. "Are you okay?" I didn't respond immediately. The words were stuck in my throat. All I could think about were the emails, the news article, the secrets. "Sarah," I said, my voice shaking slightly, "I know everything." I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, heart pounding in my chest as Sarah's voice came through the line. Her calm tone, the way she asked if I was okay, made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. She had no idea I knew everything. The emails, the stock market crash, the secret meetings. She thought she was still hiding it from me. And that realization hit me like a ton of bricks. This wasn't just about her career anymore. It was about trust. It was about betrayal. And everything I thought I knew about our marriage had been built on lies. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "Sarah," I said, my voice shaking despite my best efforts to remain calm, "I know everything." There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and for a moment I thought she might hang up. But instead, I heard her exhale, a sound that was almost too soft. Then came the words I had been dreading. "What do you mean?" she asked, the words slow and measured, as if she was trying to buy time to think of a way out of this. "You're lying to me," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I found the emails, I saw the deal, I saw everything, Sarah." There was another silence, this one even longer than the first. My heart sank as I waited for her to respond. I could almost hear her mind racing on the other end of the line, trying to come up with some excuse, some explanation. But I wasn't going to let her manipulate me again. I had seen the truth, and now I had to hear it from her. "How did you find out?" she asked, her voice now edged with something I hadn't expected, fear. "I've been checking your emails," I said, the words feeling foreign as they left my mouth. I had never done anything like that before. It felt like a betrayal of its own kind, but I couldn't stop myself. "I saw the meetings with the investor, I saw the proposal, and I saw how you've been hiding it from me. You've been lying, Sarah, about everything." She didn't speak at first, and the silence stretched out between us like a canyon that kept widening with every second. Finally, she spoke again, her voice low, but I could hear the tremor in it. "I didn't want you to find out this way, but you need to understand. This isn't what you think." "What do you mean?" I asked, my anger rising now, pushing against the walls I had built up around myself. "What do you mean this isn't what I think? You've been meeting with him in secret, making deals, hiding things from me, and you expect me to believe it's all innocent." She sighed, the sound barely audible, and I could sense her struggle. "It's complicated. There's a lot more to this than you know, and I didn't want you involved. I didn't want to drag you into something that could ruin everything." "Ruin everything," I repeated, incredulous. "You've already ruined everything, Sarah. Do you even realize what you've done? I trusted you. We built a life together. And now, I find out you've been hiding all of this from me and you expect me to just accept it." "I never wanted to hurt you," she said, her voice breaking. "I never wanted any of this. I was just trying to protect you, trying to protect us." "Protect us," I repeated, the word bitter in my mouth. "How does lying and hiding things protect us, Sarah? How does betraying me protect us?" She was silent for a long moment, and when she finally spoke, her voice was softer, more resigned. "I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't know how to explain what was happening. But now that you know, I can't hide it anymore. I've been working with him on this project for months. It's risky, but it's going to make us a lot of money. And if it works, I'll be able to provide for us in ways I never thought possible." "Money," I said, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. "This is about money. This is why you've been lying to me, why you've been sneaking around because of some business deal. Are you kidding me?" She fell silent again, and I could almost feel the distance growing between us, thicker than it had ever been. She had chosen this path. She had chosen her career, her ambition, over everything we had. And now, everything we had was falling apart. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I didn't think you'd understand. I didn't want to lose you, but I didn't know how else to handle it. I thought if I just kept it all together, we could move forward and everything would be fine." "Well, it's not fine," I said, my voice cracking. "You're destroying everything, Sarah. You've been lying to me for months, and now you expect me to just forget about it, to just move on." "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "I can't undo what I've done. I can't change the past, but I'm here now. I'm telling you the truth now, and I'll do whatever it takes to make it right." I didn't know how to respond to that. How could I trust her again? How could I believe anything she said? She had broken my trust, shattered it into 1,000 pieces, and now she was asking me to pick them up and glue them back together. But I wasn't sure I could do that. I wasn't sure I could forgive her this time. "You've hurt me more than you'll ever know," I said quietly, my voice thick with emotion. "And I don't know if I can move past this. I don't know if I can ever look at you the same way again." There was a long silence on the other end of the line, and for a moment I thought she might hang up again. But then she spoke, her voice trembling. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect things to go back to how they were. But please, just let me try. Let me show you that I can fix this. Let me show you that I'm still the woman you fell in love with." But I wasn't sure that woman was still there anymore. The woman I had fallen in love with had been open, honest, and trustworthy. This woman, this version of Sarah, was someone I didn't recognize. She was a stranger, and I didn't know if I could ever get her back. "Sarah," I said, my voice softer now, "I don't know if I can believe in you anymore. I don't know if I can believe in us." There was another silence, and when she spoke, it was barely above a whisper. "I know," she said, "and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to prove I was worth the trust you gave me, but I won't give up on us. I can't." I didn't know what to say. My mind was spinning, my heart torn in two. The pain of what she had done to me was overwhelming, but there was a small part of me that still wanted to believe in her, still wanted to believe that this was just a mistake, a terrible mistake that we could move past. But how could I? How could I trust her again? How could I go back to the way things were when everything had changed? "I don't know if I can, Sarah," I said finally, my voice quiet, almost resigned. "I don't know if I can trust you again, and I don't know if I'm ready to forgive you. Not yet." She was silent, and for a moment I thought she might break down, but she didn't. "I understand," she whispered. "Take your time. I'll wait for you if you'll let me." I didn't know what the future held for us, or if there even was a future for us anymore. All I knew was that I was standing at a crossroads, and I didn't know which path to take. The woman I loved had betrayed me in a way I never thought possible, and now I had to decide if I was willing to give her another chance, or if I had to walk away from everything we had built together. And that decision, whether to forgive or to leave, was the hardest choice I'd ever had to make. The days following the conversation with Sarah were nothing short of torturous. I had been standing at the edge of a cliff, looking down at what was once a beautiful life with her, unsure whether to take a step forward or retreat. The world I had built, the life we had shared, felt like it was slipping away, piece by piece. And each piece that fell away was one that I had invested so much in, emotionally, physically, and mentally. I couldn't stop thinking about what Sarah had done. The affair was one thing, but the lies, the deceit, the way she had woven this intricate web around me kept me in the dark, while she danced around in the shadows with someone else. It was something I wasn't sure I could ever fully grasp. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the image of her with him, the closeness, the intimacy, the way she had chosen him over me, over our marriage. But it wasn't just the affair, it was everything. Her lies, her secrets, the betrayal of everything I thought I knew about her and by extension about us. Every time I looked at her now, all I could see was that woman who had made promises she couldn't keep. I couldn't look at Sarah the same way again. I couldn't touch her without feeling the weight of her betrayal. But the worst part, the part that kept me up at night, the part that haunted me in the quiet moments when I had nothing else to do but think, was the question, could I ever forgive her? I had always believed in second chances. I had always been the one to forgive, to look beyond the mistakes and give people, the people I loved, the opportunity to prove themselves. But this felt different. This wasn't just a mistake. This was a deliberate choice, a series of choices that had been made with full knowledge of the consequences. How could I forgive something like that? I spent days wrestling with these questions, replaying everything in my mind, analyzing every moment, every word. I didn't know what I wanted anymore. I didn't know if I wanted to stay and try to rebuild or if it was too late for that. The emotional toll was overwhelming. And through all of this, Sarah kept reaching out to me, texts, calls, messages. She told me she was waiting for me, that she would give me all the time I needed. But each time I saw her name on my phone, I felt sick. The truth was, I wasn't sure what she was waiting for. I wasn't sure what I was waiting for either. All I knew was that I couldn't keep going like this. The uncertainty, the doubt, it was slowly eroding me from the inside. I needed to make a decision. But how could I make that decision when my heart and my mind were at war? Then one evening, a week after our phone call, Sarah came home early. I was sitting at the kitchen table, mindlessly flipping through some papers when I heard the door open. "Hey," she said softly, her voice hesitant, almost as if she was afraid of my reaction. I didn't look up. I couldn't look at her. Instead, I stared down at the papers in front of me, pretending to be absorbed in the work that had been piling up on my desk, but I heard her move closer. She was standing in the doorway, waiting for me to say something, anything. Her presence felt suffocating, but I couldn't push her away. Not yet. "I was hoping we could talk," she said, the softness in her voice barely concealing the anxiety that lay underneath. I took a deep breath and stood up, finally looking at her. "We've talked, Sarah," I said, my voice flat. "We've talked about everything. What's left to say?" Her eyes flickered with something I couldn't quite place, fear, guilt, or maybe a mixture of both. But she stepped forward, and for the first time in a long while, I saw vulnerability in her eyes. It was something I hadn't seen since the day she had first confessed. "I know I've messed up. I know I've hurt you, but I need you to understand something." She paused for a moment as if collecting her thoughts, then continued. I didn't do this because I wanted to hurt you. I didn't do this because I didn't love you. I did it because I lost myself and I didn't know how to get back to who I was. I was so caught up in trying to prove myself at work, in trying to be perfect, in trying to succeed in ways I didn't think were possible. I got lost. I stared at her, the weight of her words sinking in. So what, you thought cheating was the answer? I asked, my voice colder than I intended. You thought betraying me would help you find yourself. She flinched at the harshness in my tone, but I couldn't help it. I needed to express the hurt, the confusion, the rage that had been building up inside me. No, I didn't, she said quietly. I wasn't thinking straight, but I didn't know how to fix things. I didn't know how to stop what was happening. And when it started, I was too afraid to tell you. I was afraid I would lose you. Then why didn't you come to me? I asked, my voice breaking. Why didn't you tell me you were struggling? Why didn't you trust me? I would have helped you. We could have worked through it together, but you chose him. You chose him over me, Sarah. She took a step toward me, her hands trembling. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I know I've broken your trust. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I'm begging you to at least listen. Let me prove that I can fix this. I stood there feeling torn in two. Her words, her pleading, hit me like a freight train, but beneath that there was something else, something deeper, something I wasn't ready to face. I had spent so many years building my life around this woman, around us. We had built a home, a family, and now it was all falling apart. The question I kept coming back to was whether I could forgive her, whether I could truly let go of the past and move forward. But what did that even look like? How do you move forward from this? I don't know if I can ever forgive you for this, I said, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. I don't know if I can trust you again. You've broken me, Sarah, and I don't know if I can fix it. Her face crumpled, and for the first time I saw how truly broken she was. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make it up to you, she said, her voice choked with tears. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right, but I can't do it alone. Please don't give up on me, don't give up on us. I felt my heart shatter as I looked at her. I wanted so badly to believe her. I wanted to hold her, to tell her everything would be okay, but I couldn't. The wound was too deep, and I didn't know if it could ever heal. I don't know if I can keep doing this, I whispered, my voice barely audible. I don't know if I can keep living in this uncertainty. I need to figure out what I want, what I can handle, and I don't know if I can handle this anymore. She reached out, her fingers brushing mine, but I pulled away, my chest tight with the pain of the decision I was about to make. I'm sorry, I said, my voice breaking. I'm so sorry, but I don't know if I can keep living like this. I need space, Sarah. I need time to think. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I'll wait for you, she whispered. I'll wait for as long as it takes. And with that, I walked away, not knowing if there was anything left worth saving. I spent the next several days lost in my own thoughts, replaying every word, every gesture from Sarah in my mind. The image of her standing in front of me, her eyes filled with tears, her hands trembling as she begged me to forgive her, haunted me. I didn't know what to think anymore. I didn't know what I was supposed to feel. I had been standing at the edge of a cliff for so long, and now I was too exhausted to take another step forward. The house felt empty without her. Even with the space between us, I could still feel her presence, like a shadow that lingered in every room. Her absence didn't bring peace. It brought confusion. I could no longer trust my own instincts. I couldn't tell if I was making the right choice or if I was simply too broken to see the truth anymore. For days, I avoided Sarah's calls, ignored her texts. I needed time, but I also needed answers. I needed to decide what was best for me, for my future. Could I really forgive her? Could I move past the lies, the betrayal, the feeling of being completely blindsided? Or was it too much? Was the foundation of our marriage too far gone to ever be repaired? It was a Tuesday afternoon when I finally decided to face it. The decision. The one that had been hanging over me like a guillotine. I didn't want to drag this out any longer. I couldn't keep living in limbo. I had to know, once and for all, what I wanted. What we wanted. I called Sarah. She picked up after the first ring. Hey, her voice cracked, and I could hear the relief in it. She had been waiting for this moment too. I need to talk to you, I said, my voice steady, though my hands were shaking. Can you come home? There was a brief pause before she answered. Of course, I'll be there as soon as I can. As soon as she hung up, I felt a pit in my stomach. It was one thing to distance myself from her, to give myself the space I needed, but it was something else entirely to face her now, to confront the truth of everything that had happened. I sat in the living room, the walls around me feeling like they were closing in. The silence was deafening. I looked around the room, our room, and saw traces of our life together. Photographs from our vacations, our wedding pictures, little trinkets we had bought together. They all felt so far away now, like a different life, a different person. The world I had known was gone, and now I was sitting in the ruins of what had once been. I couldn't decide if I was angry or heartbroken. I couldn't decide if I still loved her, or if I had simply loved the idea of her. When Sarah finally walked through the door, I was still sitting in the same spot. She looked the same, but somehow she was different. Her eyes were red from crying, and she had clearly been trying to hold herself together. But the weight of the situation was too much. She couldn't hide the guilt, the remorse, the shame in her eyes, and I couldn't look at her without feeling the same hurt I had felt since I first found out what she had done. She closed the door behind her and stood there for a moment, unsure of what to say. She wanted to fix this, I could tell. She wanted to take everything back and undo all of the damage she had caused, but I wasn't sure I could let her. I wasn't sure I could forgive her, or if I even wanted to. "Sit down," I said, finally breaking the silence. My voice was calm, but inside I was anything but calm. "We need to talk." She sat across from me, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The tension in the air was suffocating, but neither of us knew how to begin. "Sarah," I said, my voice soft but firm, "I've been thinking about everything, about us. About everything you've done, everything I've done, and I've realized something. I can't keep living in this uncertainty, in this pain. We've been through so much, but I don't know if I can do this anymore." Her eyes widened and she reached out toward me, her voice desperate. "What do you mean? Are you saying it's over, that you're done with me?" I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart. I don't know if I can ever get past what happened. I don't know if I can ever forgive you for everything you've done. You betrayed me, Sarah, and I don't know if I can ever trust you again." The words felt like they were tearing me apart as I said them, but they were the truth, and sometimes the truth is the hardest thing to face. She looked at me, the tears spilling from her eyes as she tried to speak, but no words came out. "I know," she finally whispered. "I know, and I don't blame you for feeling this way. I've been a terrible wife. I've lied to you, I've betrayed your trust, and I can't ever take that back. But I'm asking you for one thing, one last chance. Let me prove that I can change. Let me prove that I can be the person you deserve." I stared at her, my chest tightening. Could I really do this? Could I give her another chance after everything? The lies, the secrets, the affair. Could I truly trust her again? Part of me wanted to say yes. Part of me wanted to believe that we could rebuild, that we could fix this. But another part of me, the part that had been hurt so deeply, wanted to walk away. To cut my losses and leave the past behind. "I don't know, Sarah," I said, my voice breaking. "I don't know if I can." She stood up, walking toward me. "Please," she begged, her voice shaking. "I can't lose you. I love you. I will do anything to make this right. Please, just give me a chance to prove it." I stood up, my mind spinning, my heart racing. I didn't know what to say, what to do. I had never felt so lost in my life. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that we could fix this, but I didn't know if I could. "Sarah," I said quietly, "I don't know if I can keep living like this. I don't know if I can live with the constant doubt, the constant fear that you'll hurt me again. I don't know if I can trust you, and I don't know if I can ever look at you the same way." She stepped back, her face falling. "I understand," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I understand if you can't forgive me, but I will always love you, and if you ever change your mind, I'll be here. I'll be waiting for you. I'll never stop loving you." I stood there for a long time, the silence between us heavy and suffocating. I wanted to say something, to tell her that I still loved her, that I could forgive her. But the words wouldn't come. The truth was, I didn't know what I felt anymore. I didn't know if I was still in love with her or if I was just clinging to the past. Finally I spoke, my voice barely a whisper. "I don't know, Sarah. I don't know if we can fix this, but I need time, I need space." Her face crumpled with emotion and she nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I'll give you time," she said softly. "I'll wait, and I'll never stop trying to prove that I can be the woman you deserve." As she turned to leave, I felt a wave of sadness wash over me. I didn't know what the future held for us. I didn't know if we would ever find our way back to each other. But for the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of clarity. The decision wasn't final yet, but I knew I had to choose. And it was up to me to decide if we could move past this, if we could rebuild what had been broken, or if it was too late to fix anything at all.